I just watched Snow White, so you don't have to. Here's my review, and we're going to talk pros and cons, and then I'll give you my rating out of 10. Now, quickly, I just want to say this is easily one of the most controversial movies I have ever seen. Like, everyone is talking about this thing, everyone's hating on it, then we've got some people glazing it, saying it's like a 9 out of 10. Spoiler alert, it is not a 9 out of 10 movie by any means whatsoever, but it's also not as bad as some people are saying. So the film is directed by Mark Webb, who did the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and I gotta say, I like his directing style, but in this film, it just didn't really work for me. The movie is an hour and 49 minutes long, but honestly, it feels pretty long because the pacing isn't great, and I was bored in a lot of different scenes. But anyways, let's talk about some pros, because yes, there are some. It's not the worst movie ever made, but let's go ahead and talk here. So, Rachel Zegler, I would say she actually did all right. Not anything spectacular, but I think she played Snow White pretty well. Mostly due to her singing, because I do think she is a really talented singer, but as an actress, I don't think she's as strong. Now, the songs that she does sing in this film aren't as good as the original, but I will say the one that they created for this film called, I think it's Waiting on a Wish, I actually really like that song. It's catchy and she does a great job performing it. But besides that, there's not really any other song that she sings specifically that I really liked. Then I would say the set design is actually pretty good in this film, like the different locations we go to looks visually pleasing. And I thought some of the supporting cast was alright. Once again, nothing stand out, but the guy who plays, I believe, the prince or the boy, whatever, the guy named Jonathan in this movie, the love interest, I thought he was decent, but not great. And that's all the positives I really have for this movie. Now for the part that I'm sure a lot of you guys are here for, is the negatives. The first one is definitely the CGI dwarves. It looks absolutely terrible. It was tacked on in the last year after fan feedback because they were going to replace the dwarves with these bandits or whatever, which is a very dumb decision because the movie Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, that's iconic, and the fact that they were going to remove the dwarves was insane. And then what they did to put them back in this story was even more insane. We're going to make them look like possessed garden gnomes. And they 100% should have just casted people with actual dwarfism, because that would have just made more sense. A whole bunch of people have come out and said, like, hey, this could have been a job for me, but instead you went and CGI'd a bunch of dwarves, which is insane. And I agree, if I was someone with dwarfism, this is the perfect opportunity to be in a big budget Disney movie, and the fact that they didn't cast actual people, I think is just a terrible, terrible decision. My next negative is the bandits. They were just these random characters that didn't really need to be in the movie, but I guess they just kept them in because they already shot a bunch of scenes before the fan feedback came out, and then they replaced the portion of the story that had the bandits in it with the dwarves, but for whatever reason, they still kept these bandits in the movie, and I don't know why. We don't really get to spend any time with them, learn their names, or what makes them tick, and their personality and all that. We don't really do anything with them. So wasted screen time with characters that nobody cares about whenever the bandits appeared. Then I would say Gal Gadot, she wasn't that great, but honestly, I've seen a lot of people roasting her performance in this movie, saying it's like the worst performance of her career and that she was terrible or whatever. But honestly, that's just how she acts. Like, look at almost any movie she's ever been in. It's pretty much the same thing, except she might be overacting a little bit because she is playing an evil witch. So some facial movements and line delivery might be a little bit more over the top, but honestly, it felt like just a typical Gal Gadot performance. Nothing, extremely bad compared to her previous work. But yeah, she's super stereotypical. They could have done something new, add a bit of a backstory or make her a little bit more sympathetic or something. I don't know. Just something to make the evil witch feel a little bit unique and, different and make it enhance the story, but they didn't really do anything. And then on top of that, they changed the whole reason why she's going after Snow White, because in the original, it was due to her white skin and her beauty and everything, and in this, the fairest of them all just means basically the nicest person in the kingdom, which makes absolutely zero sense, because in the beginning of the film, the mirror keeps saying that it's her. She is the fairest of them all, which makes no damn sense, because that means that everyone else in the kingdom isn't as nice as her, which obviously they are because she's an evil witch. So the change from her being jealous of looks to her just being jealous of Snow White being this really nice girl is just absolutely insane, and it doesn't work for this story in my opinion. Because, like I said, the mirror is telling her that she is the fairest of them all when she's literally the villain of the movie, and that means that all the people in the kingdom aren't as good as her. I couldn't believe it. Very dumb decision. Now, something I forgot to say in my CGI negative is the animals. The animals didn't look that great. They looked very, very cartoony, like they're smiling, their eyes are way too big. It just looked very, very weird. I think you easily could have just animated animals to look realistic, and that would have been totally fine. I don't need to see a turtle smiling like it's a Franklin cartoon on a Saturday morning on Treehouse. So yeah, the decision to make the animals in this live-action remake look cartoony I thought was an odd decision. Then I would say just all of the changes they made from the original just didn't seem like the right choice, you know? Like, they didn't have the glass casket, they changed a whole bunch of things, they removed a lot of the romance, the prince just shows up and then just basically disappears at the end. The seven dwarves don't have that much to do. The whole change from beauty to just being nice, basically just all of the changes they made from the original just didn't really work. So guys, with that being said, I'm going to give Snow White a 4 out of 10. I don't think it's a very good remake. It definitely could have been better though, because like I was saying, the singing was pretty decent besides Gal Gadot's song. Visually, the movie looked pretty good besides some of the costumes, they looked pretty cheap. And they literally had the perfect story to just adapt into live action, but for whatever reason, they just took a hatchet at it and was like, okay, we're going to chop this up, change a bunch of things, and hope for the best. And when you're adapting something that's so beloved as an original Disney movie like Snow White, changing up a bunch of things just isn't a good idea. Now, I am going to address the elephant in the room because obviously the two stars of this film, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, are on completely different political spectrums. And I'm not gonna lie, in some moments in the movie, it was very hard to just see them as fairy tale characters and not, be remembered of how they act in real life. And I hope this movie is a lesson to Disney because right now it's underperforming, it's getting bad reviews, a lot of people aren't liking it. And I think what they need to do is have some kind of social media contract for actors and actresses, basically saying, like, you cannot be posting, super political things because it's going to affect the box office, which it clearly is. And if you're gonna do a remake, just do a remake. Don't change up half the story. But yeah, guys, that's my thoughts on the new Snow White movie. I definitely don't recommend to go see it in theaters. I would just wait for it to be on Disney Plus in like a month. It's just not very good, the story doesn't feel that great with all the changes, and honestly, it gets pretty boring. We're just singing from scene to scene. I would say if you want to watch Snow White, go watch the original.